What a treat we've got today. Del Harris, currently the vice president of the Texas Legends, the NBA G League affiliate of the Dallas Mavericks. Many of you know him as a head coach in the NBA, as an assistant coach in the league. He was a head man with the Rockets, the Bucks, the Lakers, an assistant with the Nets, the Bulls, the Mavericks, the Bucks, the Rockets. The guy is a true basketball mind, even leading the Rockets to the NBA Finals in 1981. His contributions to the game are endless, and we are so honored to have him on the podcast. I'm Bryan Fenley. Del, thank you for doing this.
Oh, thank you for having me and for all those kind words.
Well, we're just
You
getting
don't have to stop. You could.
I was going to say that is just a small little sample size of your long-winded resume and everything you have done for the game of basketball. And your coaching career spans several decades, taking you from junior high to high school to college to the NBA and beyond, and even internationally. And I want to know the best coaching experience for you. Was it when you were coaching junior high hoops? Were you a better coach then, or the guy who led the Lakers to 61 wins that one season? Who was the better coach?
I hope I didn't get worse after I started. However, it's, statistically, it's debatable because the reason that I decided to become a coach as a career is a result of having spent that year coaching the junior high boys and girls. By the way, I was the coach, and we had such an experience there that I had actually taken that job at the advice of my college major professor.
Wow.
Because I was going to go to seminary after graduation, and he said I should maybe work a year to gather money up a little bit. And he said, if you agree, I already have a job for you. And it was this job. I went to a small college in Tennessee, Milligan College, and then this school, King Springs, was about 3 or 4 miles from the school in the mountains of Upper East Tennessee. And we just beat up on everybody. We scored over 100 points 4 times during that season, and it was 6-minute quarters. Of course, the courts were smaller, and 1 or 2 of my guys may have been a little older than some of the competition.
The truth coming out.
But we had a good time with it, and it just occurred to me at that time that this was probably what I was meant to do, my calling in life. So instead of going to seminary, I went to graduate school to get a master's degree and qualified to coach basketball in Indiana, where I grew up, because if I were going to coach basketball, I wanted to do it in Indiana, where I thought they were really playing it the best and what I knew about basketball, and I wanted to be a part of that. And so then it just went, coached 4 years of high school and then 9 years of small college. And then during the last 7 years, I coached in college. I coached in Puerto Rico in that summer pro league there against a lot of ABA and NBA coaches. And we won 3 national titles in a row. And Tom Nasalki, rest in peace, was one of the coaches I coached against. And he was the head coach of the Utah Stars and asked me to come be his assistant coach in 1975. And I've been involved with the ABA, NBA ever since.
I want to ask you later on in this interview about your time with the Dominican Republic and Coach Calipari, as well, as you were involved in helping that team. And everybody automatically associates you as a basketball coach, but people don't realize that you were a really good baseball coach too. And that was another one of your favorite things to do. What were you like as a baseball coach, say in your 20 somethings? What was your disposition like?
Well, I think it's the same as coaching basketball. I would get on the umpires now and then, but you know, uh, I actually failed in life in that I began my life wanting to be a professional baseball player, after which I was going to retire and be a manager, after which I was going to retire and become the next Harry Carey. I was a Cardinals fan.
Okay.
And so played baseball and basketball uh, all my life, as you know, until I was 32, really, and kept playing, and uh, high school and college, both sports. And so the jobs that I got in high school and then at the small college were as a double, as both the basketball and baseball coaches. And we won conference championships in high school. And I started two different American Junior Legion programs in the summer. Then in college, we went from a team that won 2 games the first year to by the fourth year we were winning 30 games. And of course, they were only playing 20, 22 games. I scheduled 50 games, and of course, no rainouts. If you got rained out, you didn't play.
Sure.
We had ended up playing 35 games, something like that, and maybe 40. So, but at a point, I was made, after a period of time there, I was made athletic director. I don't say general manager, but and so I gave the baseball up to my assistant coach, and just did the basketball as far as the coaching. But I still love baseball.
We're trying to get you in the Naismith Hall of Fame. It sounds like you're making a case for the Baseball Hall of Fame with all your accomplishments in that sport.
Well, let me tell you something. I'm already in one.
You are?
Yes, in the Southern Indiana Baseball Hall of Fame, Evansville area. They have Evansville has that Hall of Fame specifically for those in Southern Indiana, and then they have the Indiana Sports Hall of Fame there in Evansville as well. So anyway, yeah, I kept playing till I was 32, and on these men's teams, you know, I played in 7 national tournaments, and we won 1 national championship. Mainly, we were high school and college coaches, or guys who had just come back from organized baseball, or who were on their way as college players. They were hoping to get in the league and that sort of thing. So had a lot of fun with it.
The great Del Harris is with us, distinguished basketball coach. I'm Bryan Fenley. And Del, we fast forward to the 90s. Many associate you as the Lakers head coach. When they think of Del Harris, that might be the first thing that they recall when you were coaching in the NBA on a nightly basis. What had to align for you to get that job?
Well, you speak correctly in that I'm known as the Lakers coach. I coached 53 years,
Mm-hmm.
but when I'm introduced, it's first of all former Lakers head coach.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
it always is, because coaching the Lakers or the Celtics or the Yankees or the Dodgers or the Cardinals. I mean, that's as high as you can go in the sport, and so proud to have been associated with them those years, and wish it could have been longer. But how it happened is everything in life that amounts to much usually is a result of relationships that are established. And, I always say this to younger coaches and younger people in general,
Yeah.
to hang on to your relationships, develop them and hang on. And Jerry West was one of my close friends, and um, we had done camps together and things like that. And um, so when the job opened up after Magic came and filled in that last part of the 03-04 season,
Mhm.
the job was open, and I was just uh, working with Canada and with the Sacramento Kings as their consultant to the owner. And as Canada's national team, I had Steve Nash as a point guard as a 19-year-old. Rick Fox was a small forward, and I was assistant to their national coach up there. And anyway, West called me and asked me if I wanted to do it. And of course, I didn't hesitate. And
Yeah.
it was a long process. It really, and it wasn't that quick in that uh, that in 2 days from that call, I was supposed to, and already had the trip scheduled, go to Sacramento because the owner of Sacramento wanted me to become the general manager,
Oh, wow.
and actually coach as well. But I had been consultant, and I wasn't going to go from consultant to head coach. I mean, as a consultant, you can't say fire the coach so I can be the head coach. That's
Sure.
not good consulting. And so anyway, but I had been with him all year, and he had made lowball offers to me, and which I didn't accept. And we had worked through most of it, but there were still a couple other points that he hadn't agreed to yet. But he said, "Come out, we'll hammer things out." Well, uh, when I got there, Wes called and he said that uh, he could offer me the job,
Wow.
but he wanted to make sure I hadn't agreed to become general manager of the
Oh.
Kings, because Jerry Buss and Jim Thomas were good friends. Buss had recommended Thomas buy the Kings when he bought them. Thomas was from Los Angeles as a real estate guy, like Buss was.
Mhm.
And uh, Thomas had told him that he had a deal with me. And I said, well, no, he doesn't. And so he said, well, all right. He says, come on down. And, told me the hotel to go to. And he said, I'm pretty sure we'll be able to work it out. So
Yeah.
in that moment, there was from flying from Sacramento to LA, there was a moment at which I didn't have any job.
So you had to take a little bit of a leap of faith. You
I
got
did.
into LA. Then what happened?
Well, I went to the hotel in Century City, and Mitch Kupchak came to the room. I had my wife with me as well, and he had a contract.
And how long did it take for you to say, you know what? I'm going to sign that, get that out of the way really quickly?
I think that was somewhere in the nanosecond area.
Yes. When you were taking over the Lakers, soon enough you had Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal as part of your arsenal. You had known Kobe when he was a child because you had coached his father. And I read, Dell, that you met him for the first time when he was 4 years old. What was he like as a 4-year-old? And did that meeting with him give you any of a foreshadowing into the composure and just the amount of fight that he would have, his work ethic one day?
No, I'm not that good a scout. They got to be at least in junior high for. But uh, the the comical answer on that one
Yeah.
is when someone asked me, "What was your first impression of Kobe?"
Mm-hmm.
Well, my first impression of Kobe, and they don't know that he was 4 years old, is, well, I thought he was really a cute kid.
I can't even
And then I
imagine.
have to explain.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, my biggest claims to fame with kids these days when I speak at little basketball clinics for young kids is that I was uh, Kobe's first coach, Magic Johnson's last coach, and was in Space Jam.
Yeah. Those are.
So that makes me cool. Otherwise, they don't care about being with the Rockets, Bucks. It doesn't matter.
Well, those three things are the origination of the triple threat right there. So that's where the moniker came from what you did. What made Kobe unlike anyone else you have ever coached before?
He was, and I coached I had around 14 or 15 Hall of Fame players. So I've been around a lot of great players, and all of them are highly motivated. And nobody limps into the Hall of Fame. You don't back in, and you don't get in on popularity. Uh, and so they were all hard workers. So I don't want to say that Kobe was the hardest, most focused, or whatever, uh, without prefacing it with
Sure.
all these guys,
Mm-hmm.
gave it their best shot. I just think that of all that I coached, I think that he was the most single-minded about becoming the best at this game that he could be, period. I mean, he that was where he started out. And I think probably Jordan was much the same way, although in the back of his mind, he may have had a little baseball. I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
as it turns out. But they played it that way. And now this worked for Kobe in his personal development as a player because it it made his work ethic come naturally. I mean, when you're that focused on one thing, uh, then it's easy to put in the time because that's all there is, and that worked to a point, but also it kind of hurt him a little bit with his relationship with players early on. Uh, but it's what made him uh, become what he was. And he studied it, he worked at it. Unfortunately, the Lakers and the Clippers were the two last teams to have their own practice sites. So we had to rent a place for 2 hours a day and then leave. And if I'd had more time with him, it would have just worked better, I think. The relationships would have been better, and he developed quickly anyway. By the end of that rookie year, 18, he was an important part of the rotation. And then his second year, he was runner-up sixth man of the year. But he came to a team that was already a 53-game winner the year before, and then we added Shaq. And so that team won 56 with Shaq missing 31 games. And then the next year, that first year. Then the next year, we won 61 games when he was sixth man and was third leading scorer on the team, though. That's how good he was. He may have not been a starter, started one game, but he was a finisher, and which is more important to a competitive player. And Shaq missed 21 of those games. And so we went to the Final Four, but we got beat by a veteran Utah team, and we didn't have anybody 30 years old on our team. And it was our first trip that deep with those kids, except for Shaq, who had done one time with Orlando. But it was hard. It was their fourth trip, I think, to the Final Four in 5 years. And they had won 62 games that year, as had the Bulls. And but Kobe had to develop slowly because he was playing behind a two-time All-Star in Eddie Jones to begin with. And also he came in with a teenage body, unlike LeBron, who came in with a man's body already. It looked like he was 30, when he stepped on the court as a rookie. But Kobe put on 10, 15 pounds after that first year, stronger, and just kept working and developed his skills along with it.
And here you are managing all these stars. Everybody wants all this playing time. Kobe feeling like he deserves to start right away. He's been open about that. You saw his talent, but you didn't give him a free pass right away, like you said, because you had so many other stars on the team, Eddie Jones, to name a few. And Kobe was open about how challenging those couple first years were, where he felt like he deserved more than he got as far as playing time. But ultimately, Del, don't you think, and I think Kobe even illustrated this later on, he had the foresight and the maturity to see this, that those first couple years probably motivated him even more. And maybe by the work that you did with him in slowly progressing him to the game and not just throwing him out there as a star right away, that could have contributed to the player he would eventually become even more and even foster more of that work ethic he had.
Well, he told me that in 2012 when I was talking with him when I was assisting John Calipari with the national team from Dominican Republic, and we played USA basketball in an exhibition game in Las Vegas, and so that was the only time we really got any extended time talking because it was all the rest of the time he was with the Lakers, I was with the Mavericks, and so then we were rivals. I mean, those two good teams, and in those days, and but anyway, he said that coming slowly made him refine his game, and if he had come to a team that had won 24 or 30, 35 games the year before, it had been different. Like LeBron did, and you just throw him out there and let him play through his mistakes. But we couldn't do that. Pressure was on me to win every game, as well as play Kobe.
Yes.
And but I told him right away. I said, "Now, Kobe, you have decided to forego the youth game by not going to college, the kids game, and you've entered right away into the man's game. And so I've got to treat you not as some exciting young player, but as a member of the team, just like everybody else. And you're going to have to be, in order to get where you want to be in that starting lineup, you can't tie. It's like championship boxing. The challenger can't tie and wear the belt. You have to knock them out.
Sure.
It has to be a KO or a TKO, and then you wear the belt. But until that happens, you can't. But that will be what you'll be working for. And by the third year, then he had done that. But and I just had him 12 games that year. But ironically, in those 12 games, he averaged 20 points and 10 rebounds. Wow. You can imagine that. Now, he didn't finish up that season with that high numbers on the rebounds, but he did average 20 points a game his third year. But 15 his second year, so on a 61 win team. So, but he had to refine his shooting. He couldn't get by with 38, even 40% shooting, and 25, 28% from the 3-point line, early on. He never became a great 3-point shooter, He didn't have to because of his great ball skills, but he at least became a 35% 3-point shooter. But he had it as a threat, but what his game was penetrate and make a play, whether it was to score it or get somebody else involved.
One of the hardest things to grasp with his untimely death, and we were talking about this earlier, Del, was how much he was giving back and how his mentality had changed, and he wasn't so self-focused on his own goals, but helping so many around him see their own goals and help them get there. And you brought up the story that when he spoke at Frank Hamlin's funeral and how he really did embody Kobe, this new persona of wanting to help and enrich society. What were the takeaways you had from Kobe during that ceremony and seeing a guy who had so much more to give?
Well, first of all, I kind of kept up with Kobe on a personal level through Frank Hamlin, who had been my assistant coach in Milwaukee. And Frank and Kobe really bonded well, just like Frank had done with Michael Jordan after he left Milwaukee. And so I knew the kind of changes and all the development that Kobe had made in his dealings with his teammates and with the rest of society and so forth to a point. But when I heard him speak the eulogy at Frank's funeral there in Los Angeles, I could tell this is a totally mature and different person than I had ever known personally. And again, the big loss is that as much as Kobe had done in his 41 years, he was going to do much, much more in the next however many years he might have been given, because he had gradually become away from being so individual focused and purpose for self focus to becoming gradually others oriented on his team and then through in society, and to the point of which his focus had become totally others.
There was that story when you were an assistant with the Mavericks back in 2005. And at that point, Kobe still was on the Lakers. And here comes Kobe. You're watching this. The guy goes off for 62 points. And after the game, he was asked, well, Kobe, where did this come from? What inspired you to have this kind of performance? And he pointed you out. And I don't think it came from like a mean-spirited space, but he was like, this is for Del to show, hey, I'm really that good. And it was hard not playing as much when I was younger, but it just seemed like it wasn't from a really mean, like I said, space. And so You think about that, Del, and you've worked with so many different high-performing athletes. What's the most extreme ways you have seen athletes try to motivate themselves? Like, here's Kobe going way back and using you as an example to motivate himself. Well, I'm going to show him. Like, what are some really extreme ways you've seen players try and inspire themselves to do huge things?
Well, I don't know the answer to that, but you know that that of course is a bogus thing, you
Yeah,
know, about the and he said it. He was laughing during the time he said it, but
yeah,
it was reported more that he was serious. In fact, he said I hated him. He wouldn't let me play, you know. Uh, so anyway, the strange thing about that is that, uh, as you said, that was in 2005. Well, uh, that was the sixth season that I had coached against him.
yeah,
So we were playing 3 or 4 times a year against one another. Theoretically, I'm on the bench, he's on the court. And I think if he had had that much emotion wrapped up, it would have come out somewhere in the first 5 years. In fact, the first time that we matched up against each other was in the 2000 part of the 99-2000 season.
sure. Wow.
And we beat them. So the first time he ever played against us, we beat them, and he only scored 16 points. And so then in that fifth year, this is 04, 05, 06 season. This is December of 05. He had already dumped 43 on us earlier that season, but he never, you know, said that it had anything to do, you know, I don't know
Yeah,
how many you have to score before it shows what a guy can do.
sure.
Uh, but, and he was already a all-star and all-league defender and all that. So, you know, we talked about that. Actually, in 2012, we laughed about it again. He
Yeah,
said, "No, man," he says, people, you know, some of them thought I was serious. He said, you know, like I say, it would make no sense that
yeah,
he would wait in the sixth season to let it show.
yeah,
So, but anyway, I think most guys are motivated enough just to go after the W. You know,
yeah,
a great athlete doesn't need to be highly motivated. I've said many times that as an NBA coach, uh, you run out of gippers after a period of time. I mean, you know, if the
hmm,
players don't want to play hard for themselves, for personal pride, for their teammates whom they're living with and their brothers, uh, or for the fans who show up, if that's not motivation enough, plus the money they get paid,
hmm,
I'm not going to be able to come up with something every game
yeah,
that's going to get them up to where they, oh, okay, maybe I'll try to win. You know, no, I think that if you are fortunate enough to put on an NBA uniform, you're already a very, very good player. I don't care if you're the last guy on there and you don't even get in a game all year. You're a very good player. You wouldn't have on the uniform. That's how good these guys are. And I mean, we have a lot of outstanding players in the G League, the
sure.
Development League, and but they aren't on the NBA level yet, as good as they are now. A lot of them will be because we send up about 40 every year,
Wow.
at least for 10 days. And oftentimes, you know, at least about half of those will stay and be on the team the next year. So uh, it's it's just something that I think the great athletes are self-starters.
Del Harris also could be argued as a self-starter, former Laker coach, a great basketball mind. So glad to have him with us here. I'm Bryan Fenley. You were also a Laker coach when Magic Johnson decided to come out of retirement, and there was a whole lot of pomp and circumstance when that happened. Seeing this unfold in front of your eyes, what was that like?
Well, that was much like coaching in the NBA Finals practices for that first day.
Yeah.
I mean, the number of cameras that showed up, that practice was at LMU and Loyola Marymount University, for those who are not local. And we had them. There were foreign cameras there.
Wow.
It was like I say, in those days, a regular NBA game would have 3 cameras, 4 cameras max, even for big games with the Celtics, so forth. They maybe there would be 6 or 8 cameras. I don't know how many cameras there were beyond counting. There were 20, 30. I don't know. It was,
Wow.
like I say, it was like playoffs. The number of reporters that show up for playoffs are immense. Everybody wants to get a press pass,
Yeah.
and so and a lot of people are turned away, so they let in as many as they can. Well, that's what happened there. John Black was just flooded, who was our PR director with the Lakers, flooded with requests, and he let in as many as he could. But it was something, and it didn't. I mean, it leveled off, obviously, but we again, we had a good team the year before. We had won 48 games. Went to my first year there. We went to the second round, but they'd been in the lottery the year before,
Sure.
so we didn't have a real good following. It had been a little dry for a couple of years, so we didn't have a great following until we got into the playoffs that first year. Second year picked up, but once Magic joined the team, which was in January of that year, we had every place we went, we had
Wow.
2 or 3 times as many cameras as we had ever had before.
You were becoming so accustomed to cameras that it became an easy transition when you hit Hollywood and here comes Space Jam. And so now you're like, oh, okay, I'm used to this now. I'm going to play a role in Space Jam. And there's that trademark scene where you're trying to coax your players to suit up in the locker room. And there's Vlade. He says, I'm not doing that, coach. And so the players end up putting their jerseys in the hallway and they're wearing these gas masks. How long did it take to film that scene? How many times did you say your lines?
Not very many.
Okay.
Really, the whole process took only about an hour.
Oh, wow.
And that included the close shot, and then we had to kind of fake it and do it over for the long shot, speaking in production terms. And but I only had 6 or 7 lines or whatever it was. And Vlade's great line was something like, "Oh, we can't go. There's bugs." My line is, it's 2,000 miles away, or however.
Yeah.
4,000 miles, however far it is, and so forth. But we've got to play. There's a huge fine. But I still remember some of it. But anyway, it was fun, and that was 1996. I also did some in those days, and later Diagnosis Murder and In the
Sure.
House with LL Cool J, and
Wow.
uh, did one with Steve Carell and
Oh, wow.
so forth. Did another with uh, oh. I can't remember now. Oh, Richard Roundtree and Pam Grier with it was called Link's Place on Showtime, and
Okay.
I had a lot of fun with those things. And uh, this is 24 years ago, and my wife just cashed the last quarter check I got from Space Jam.
Really?
Every quarter I'd get something. All right,
Yeah.
after taxes, it was just $96, but it's a check.
Nick Van Exel, getting to play with him, second round draft pick, showed so much great play on the court when he was a Laker. How did your respect for one another grow over the years?
Well, it was slow, not for one another. It was a one-way deal uh, for the 4 years there. He was my point guard for 4 years, and we win 48, 53, 56, 61 with him as point guard. And I feel so strongly that the role of the point guard and the role of the sixth man are special positions, as well as in those days the low post. Today the low post is minimized, although it wouldn't be. I mean, if Shaq were to reappear somehow, or Kareem, or all the great players uh, that I coached, Moses and Jack Sikma and Vlade and Bob Lanier and Elvin Hayes and a number of post guys that are in the Hall of Fame. Yao Ming,
Yeah.
when I was head coach of China. And so those players would still have a role. You would still be playing through them inside
Mhm.
and then out to the three, and instead of just mainly the penetrations and out to the three now. But anyway, uh, with uh, Nick, uh, he was a terrific player, but he felt that when he got traded, that I was the one that traded him. Well, I was on the last year of my contract. I couldn't even get an extension on my
Sure.
contract after 61 wins, much less have the power to, trade somebody.
Sure.
So anyway, he was traded away, and Ty Lue came in as a
Mhm.
rookie, but it obviously Ty never did become the kind of player that uh, that Nick was. But uh, fast forward about 2, 3 years, uh, we have a chance to get Nick in a trade when I'm with the Mavericks and he's with the Nuggets. And Mark Cuban and Don Nelson left it up to me. They said, if you think that he can really help our team without hurting it, we're going to make that deal. But if you think that he would be poisonous to the chemistry that we have, which was very, very good, uh, and we averaged the 7 years I was with the team, we averaged 58 wins. So I mean, we were good,
Mhm.
and we didn't, want to bring in somebody that would not fit. But I said, no, he's good. He will help us, and he really did help us. He was terrific for us. Mainly he was the third guard, but he came in and he was big for us, especially in the playoffs against Sacramento, who was so good in those years with Vlade and Weber and Stojakovic and Bibby, um, and as a result, he found that, I certainly didn't get rid of him by any
Yeah.
means. And that, uh, that I was for him. And we had a meeting in my office. He came in, and it was a very emotional meeting. And one of the best feelings I've ever had in all this was watching him on 30-30 discuss his career, and the kind things he said about me just
Wow.
made everything worth it.
That's where coaching becomes so rewarding, so fulfilling when you can have those kind of responses, those kind of reactions from your players. How about Cedric Ceballos and what it was like coaching him when he was with the Lakers?
Well, it was great. But before I get to said, I would add on that Nick was our head coach for 2 years with the Texas Legends.
That's right.
So we were on the team together for 2 years, and then most recently he was scouting for the Mavericks. So yeah, it was all good. And
Yeah.
and then with said now works for the Mavericks as well.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
ironically, see, we traded for said that first year, and without Cedric, we wouldn't have been what we were. We needed that guy, and Cedric made the All-Star team his second year with us, and I never ran a play for him. I didn't have to. Our plays all had second and third options, and so he would be the second or third option, but he knew how to present himself to the ball uh, wherever it was. And he had a great knack for it, and he was a great cutter. And he and Antoine Jameson that we had here with the Mavericks,
That's right.
they were the best that I ever saw in the paint at catching a pass and immediately getting it up on the glass.
Wow.
And I don't care where it hit on the glass, those guys had to spin on it and it would find the net an
Wow.
incredible amount of times. And he averaged over 20 points a game for us
Hmm.
without a play being, seriously, not a play was called for him.
Wow.
And then when I came to the Lakers, he was on the Mavericks. He was on the Mavericks,
Yeah.
and so anyway, now he's broadcasting. He's got the golden voice. I mean, he worked. It was just great. Now we traded him, and I'll tell you why we traded him. I did, help with that. I mean, Jerry West makes the deals, but I told him that when Robert Ory threw the towel on the bench in Danny Ainge's face with the Phoenix Suns, and knowing that we had gotten Cedric from Phoenix in a trade just a couple of years before, and how well Cedric had played for us, that I figured we can make that deal. Danny's not going to put up with that, and Ori would really fit in for us as a small forward, um, and yet as a power forward rather. Even though he had been a small forward, 6'10", small forward, but he was going to be better for us as a power forward opposite Rick Fox as the 3, because he would give Shaq more space.
Hmm.
And he was a great defender, and he could make a shot. You had to guard him. And otherwise, I had been playing with Ced had Rick Fox coming off the bench, and had Eldon Campbell and playing in there in the big spot with Shaq. And as good a player as Eldon was, he wasn't a power forward. He couldn't stretch the
Sure.
court at all. Good player. And fortunately, we had him because when Shaq was out, all those games, 53 games, Eldon took that spot and averaged 18 and 8, which are great numbers. They're not 28 and 12 like Shaq, but they're great. And but Robert then became such a key guy in the ensuing years for the Lakers, and Cedric's the guy that got him that particular piece.
Said a broadcaster. You also are a broadcaster, so both of you deserve to be applauded for your accomplishments in that field. I've got two more questions for you, Del. You touched on this a little bit ago, but the experience you had coaching for the Dominican Republic with John Calipari, what was that experience like?
It was really good because John and I had become friends back in the 90s. We met in Spain doing basketball clinic for the for the European coaches, Spain, but also they came from Italy, France, all over. And that was about 92 or 3. And ultimately, we were to do clinics together on 4 continents. And we are great friends to this moment. And so when the Dominican Republic wanted to get Cal to be the coach, Cal's assistant coach, Orlando, was a Dominican, and so they thought, well, they would get Orlando and Cal, and because we had some NBA players, we had Al Horford and Francisco Garcia and Charlie Villanueva and so forth. And they wanted to get a top coach to coach the team, thinking they had a pretty good team. And Cal told them that he would come if they would hire me for the same money they gave him.
Wow.
And then he called me and told me.
Wow.
And so we did that for 2 years, and we had a great run. But unfortunately, the purpose was to get in the London Olympics. The Olympics were such a great experience for me that I was willing to give it a shot again.
Sure.
And Al wanted to do it, and so, but we lost in the runner-up spot in the Americas. Well, it was not just the Americas, because we got beat out by Argentina and Brazil. We got 3rd. And so that qualified us the next year, though, for the final 3 spots. And Russia and Lithuania got 2 of them. And we got beat in that game for the 3rd spot. And so we missed it by 1 game each time. And so it was disappointing in that regard, but it was a lot of fun. A great experience. We had great people. Al Horford was wonderful. So was Cisco Garcia and Charlie. We had a very, very young guy named Carl Anthony Towns that made our team the 2nd year. He wasn't a starter at that point. He was only 19, 18 maybe, 18. And 17 is what he was. He was
Oh
still in
my
high
gosh.
school. Yeah.
What a player he has become.
Yeah.
And all of these players, so many of them who you've coached and you've had incredible impacts on, many have made it to the Naismith Hall of Fame. You belong in the Naismith Hall of Fame. Why haven't you gotten there yet? Because I think that it needs to happen pretty soon. It's overdue.
Well, thank you for that. I have been nominated a number of times, but as a coach first, then as a contributor. But I will say this, that last year, they gave me the Lifetime Achievement Award called the John W. Bunn Award, and that puts your name in. Your body isn't in there, but
It's a
uh,
start.
yeah, that's the highest award they give, other than putting your whole career in as such and whatever. But so uh, we'll see. And I'm really thankful for uh, all the various uh, things that have been given to me and the stuff that you hear my dog bark.
I love it.
See, my dog's cheering
I
for
love
me.
it. My dog would do the same thing.
But so we got Amore's vote, but anyway, we'll see. But it would just be, extra. It's not anything that you really shoot for or try to campaign for or anything like that. So.
Sure. Well, Del, you've got two beautiful dogs behind you. I'm very jealous.
Those are rescue guys.
Oh.
Yeah, that's Amore, the female, and the black dog is Dino. You can just barely see him.
See her, yeah. I see him, yeah.
Yeah, he's small. Well, he's 65 pounds, but
wow,
short-legged.
Okay.
He's got good hops.
Good hops. Well, if you hang around Del, you're gonna be destined to have good hops. And I so much appreciated this. This was really a blast, and I'm so glad we got to do this. And I hope that one day when life returns to normalcy, we can meet in person. I'm in Dallas from time to time. It'd be fun to connect.
That'd be great, Brian. Anytime. Yeah.